Hello and welcome. So the next 2, 3, maybe even 4 episodes will consist of quest and a bit of Barrows, but mostly quest. But from then on, that should be enough for what I need to just continue money making. The main goal I'll be completing first is getting the stats for Barrows. As it's a fairly easy boss with plenty of safe spots all around the map. I'll also make a guide for Barrows eventually because there is something unique I have to offer in my guide that is probably not included in the guides that are currently out. So I did finish a few more quests, although some of it may seem kinda insignificant because it's offering non-combat XP, but I did finish In Search of the Myreque quest, which unlocks the underground shortcut behind the Canfiis Pub, which is one of the ways to get to Barrows. It's not the one I'm going to use. The method I'm going to use is, well, I described it in the last episode. It's basically, first I bank at any bank I want, then I use the Ectophial to get to the ferry ring that is right by the Haunted Woods, just to get to Xanaris, and then from Xanaris I go to the Mortmire Swamp, and run south to the Mortmire Boat, which brings me all the way to Barrows. And I believe that's the quickest method to get to Barrows. And since I need an Ectophial for the banking method I plan to do for Barrows, I need to do the Ghost Ahoy quest. But finishing the Ghost Ahoy quest also allows me to freely go in and out of the Port Phasmates area, which lets me freely enter the city to use the bank if I should forget something. While here, I decided to level up my prayer, although using the Ectofunctus method here was more logical at this time because the construction skill was still disabled at this point, so Gilded Altars did not exist yet. So if you actually plan to level up prayer, the Gilded Altar method is a lot better. But since the Gilded Altar did not exist yet, I got my prayer up at the Ectofunctus to level 44. 43 is just for Protect Melee, but if you get 44 for Eagle Eye, it's only one prayer level more, and it allows me to flick Eagle Eye prayer when I get around to fighting Arims. And the last I need for the banking method I want to use for Barrows is the Fairy Tail storyline. There's the Lost City quest, then the Fairy Tail Part 1, followed by Fairy Tail Part 2. But for Part 2, you don't need to finish the quest, just up to where you actually use the Fairy Ring. And the entire storyline has no skill requirements, so anybody can do it. So to further emphasize, when I got 43 prayer, which the bones I used took a few hours of law running to fund the bones, which doesn't take too long, and the 43 prayer helps a ton when I'm doing Barrows or any boss in general, but the reason for getting 43 prayer at Barrows was just in case of mistakes, like you see here, where mistakes are going to allow the Barrow brothers to get free damage on you. Now, nobody's gonna have a perfect Barrows run for hours on end without messing up. Well, I mean, if you mess up doing the runaround method. And if you mess up while doing this method on Darok, it could possibly kill you, like it happens here. Well, if you happen to mess up without prayer. No matter how fast you are in 07, it's impossible to get back to Barrows to loot your gear in the 2 minutes you're given. Not to mention, if you die, any player passing by can just loot your items, since there's no grave system in 07. Now the downside is, at the moment this was recorded and probably will stay true until they fix it, is if you happen to level up in any skill while doing a runaround method, your character stalls and stays stationary for that second until you click away. So for doing the runaround method, you have to be moving at all times or else it's gonna hit you. And that one tick where you're stalled and stationary, that's long enough for Dark to get up to melee distance and auto attack you. And if Dark is low HP, that's potentially enough to kill you. So getting 43 prayer is also security to just not die to Dark. So at this point, I'm only killing 5 of the 6 Barrow brothers, although you probably want to kill all 6 because it really helps for improving the chance for a Barrows item. But at this point, I'm limited because I haven't trained range yet, so I can only kill 5 of the 6 Barrow brothers. Because I only trained magic, which works on the 4 melee brothers, and as well as Carol's, which is kind of weird because Carol's, you would think that he would be resistant to magic, but technically he has level 1 mage, so he doesn't actually have any mage defense. So you're able to mage him in like full rune and still hit. Sure, I could still complete Barrows with just 5 of the 6 brothers, but I really wanted to just kill all 6 and get it done with, so that I have the best chance at an item, so I decided to level up range. So because I didn't train range yet, I wanted to check out what quest offers range XP. And none really offers decent range XP. There's some that give small amounts, but not much for range specifically. One of the few quests that does give range XP is a part of the recipe for Disaster Quest. Now, I would have done this quest series regardless because it just gives you a really good, cheap, untradeable glove. Really good for when I actually start PKing. So the Rune Glove is like 5k and it's only a few points weaker than the Barrow Gloves, which is really cost effective for the stats it gives. Not only does the glove give really good stats, it's a tribrid glove, which makes it pretty much useful for any attack style, although if you plan to just range specifically, Van Braces are still better, but for everything else like hybriding, tribriding, or even just general use, the Rune and Barrow Gloves are just amazing for what it offers. So because I wanted to get range XP to be able to kill Arims, I did the Golem quest, and then followed by that I did Shadow to Storm quest, which the quest reward for Shadow to Storm is 10k XP in the combat skill of choice. So I used that on range and it got me from level 1 to 27 range instantly. Now it's a fairly easy quest, so actually it was fairly short, done in like under an hour. As for any ranger who plans to use arrows or bolts, and Ava's Accumulator is pretty much recommended because it attracts your arrows back so that you don't have to go pick it up. Although, if you have money to spend on Chinchompas, I guess you could like chin like level 80 to 90 or whatever you want, but I'm not going to do that route because once I have the stats to do PVM, I'm just going to do that all the way to 99 and see how much I make by the time I hit 99, or see at what point do I hit the 500 mil. So earlier, before I did Shadow to Storm, I did Dragon Slayer. Some of these clips may seem out of order, but usually it's because I want to keep a point, so I have to keep showing clips maybe further ahead, then have to go back to talk about something else. I did Dragon Slayer mainly for the XP. It offers a really generous strength and defense XP, and allows me to wear rune plates. Earlier, before I leveled up my range, back when I was still only killing 5 of the 6 brothers, I want a good 40 to 50 Barrows run without a single item. So that's why I pretty much decided I needed to decide how I was going to deal with Arims. I had to choose to either train melee or range. Since all the Barrow brothers pretty much have 70 defense, either method would have been somewhat difficult. And by difficult, I just mean compared to how effective mage is against the melee brothers, which is absurdly easy. So I decided to go for range because of a few things. Training range only requires 1 skill. If I wanted to train melee, I would need to train 2 skills, and well, from there on there would be even more options. I could stop myself at 60 attack for just dragon weapons, or extend to 70 attack for whips. Although a whip and a DDS with 99 attack and strength is a lot better than 99 range, I decided to go for range because when I do start PKing, having 99 range makes PKing very, very cheap. Ammunition is cheap as well as range being, well, a range skill. Being able to attack people from afar minimizes the risk of dying, whereas melee is more of like a high risk, high reward. So there's pros and cons on both sides, but I decided to go for range because it's more simple. Also, early on, if you decide to go with melee, you're gonna have a bit more of a more difficult time because Arim lowers your strength, so you're going to have to bring restore pots, you're going to have to bring more strength pots because Arim lowers your strength levels, so it's just going to be a tad more difficult early on. Okay, so that was a lot. So this part is more optional, but I like to have a decent agility level because in 07, energy restoration is quite terrible compared to what it is in the live game, which is a good and bad thing. It's good because it actually encourages people to train agility, so the skill actually holds some value, but bad in a way that I think most can agree that early on the most annoying thing is running out of energy when just running around, questing, or doing whatever. It just makes going from point A to point B easier if you train agility. So I'd say around 50 agility is fine, but again, it's completely optional. It just depends on how much you care about running out of energy. So I do plan to eventually train agility further because having energy in multi-PvP just helps a ton, because it helps you stick on the target as well as get away from pursuers, which is a really huge advantage, especially in extended PvP fights. So I know that they recently added in FTP themed server. I wonder if it's like the old kind of themed server where, like, if you didn't know, for the longest time, even though agility is a pay-to-play skill, if you went to free-to-play with 99 agility, you still had 99 agility, even though pay-to-play content is supposed to be disabled. And it was like that for a while, so even if you had the exact same stats, if somebody had 99 agility over you, they're gonna get away faster because you're gonna have level 1 agility. And if you've been at any of the free-to-play wars, you know that it's pretty much impossible to continue running with full rune on, especially if you have a ton of full rune sets on you. Well, like if you PK'd them. And that's something I really liked about free-to-play multi-PvP, because energy got burned away so fast with level 1 agility, it just made people use their energy wisely. So if you chased a target from like graders to red spiders, you would be pretty much useless for a while, because it takes a while to get around if you don't have energy. I think in wars you're not supposed to chase that far, although I have seen that there are people, I don't know how, but they tank it out all the way from like graders all the way past Red Dragon Isle, all the way past red spiders. And I never figured out how they did that. So I got quite a bit done this episode. The next few episodes, I probably want to condense them a bit so that it's actually caught up with the present, but I did get quite a bit done in this episode. I finished the quest requirements I needed for the banking method for Barrows. I got 44 prayer so that I could use Eagle Eye and protect for melee, and well, just so that I don't die at Barrows. And I finally started to train range so that I could kill Urims. Again, you could use melee or range against Urims, but remember, if you do choose to melee Urims, your strength gets lowered throughout the fight. So the longer the fight, the lower your strength gets, so there's that. So if you made it this far in the video, I would like to thank you very much for watching, and have a nice day.